Call the Planning Commission meeting to order. Can the Secretary please take roll?
Commissioner Alchek. Commissioner Downing. Vice Chair Fine. Commissioner Gardias. Commissioner Michael. Commissioner Rosenblum. Chair Tanaka. 6 present.
Okay, so I'd like to first start the meeting with oral communications. Members of the public may speak to any item not on the agenda. Are there any cards? Okay, seeing no cards, I'm going to close that item and then move to the director's report.
Thank you, Chair Tanaka. Just to let you know that 441 Page Mill Road was considered by the City Council on Monday. There was a request for some additional analysis from staff related to the economic analysis and traffic studies, so we'll be preparing that and returning back to the City Council promptly. And the development gap study was continued to February 9th. So again, if Commission representation is welcome, but not mandatory for that discussion. And that concludes the report.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, so our first agenda item is informational. It's our Palo Alto existing condition roadshow, introduction to planning staff and review of existing conditions report. Who would like to begin?
Thank you, Chair Tanaka. Commissioners, Hillary Gittleman, the director. We have 2 items tonight. Let me just introduce both of them right now. The first is supposed to be fun, and I think it will be. It's something I've been looking forward to for a long time. I know we have new commissioners here, but even some of you commissioners who have been around for a while probably haven't met our staff upstairs that work incredibly hard on a whole range of projects, many of which don't even come to the commission. And so we were looking for an opportunity to introduce them to you, and we thought we would do it in a really fun way. It's going to be a slideshow. Jessica's going to explain a little how we organized it, but we decided to use the existing conditions report, which is, let's face it, a little dry, a little boring, as the material that we would use, and present it in a way that we hope you will find entertaining. This is a terrific group of people. They're not all professional planners. This group includes some of our administrative staff, and even those who are planners in the group are not necessarily experts in the topics that they were assigned or that they volunteered for. So you're seeing people work with material that is not familiar to them, but this is a group that gets engaged and involved in all of the work they do in a really extraordinary way. And I am very, very pleased to be working with them, and I hope you'll enjoy the show. Jessica?
Thanks, Hillary. I think Hillary pretty much said it all. Oh, Jessica Sullivan, most of you know me as the parking manager, although tonight I'll be talking about something else. So this presentation we prepared is what's called a pachachka. Some of you might be familiar with it. It's actually sort of an art form that was developed by a couple of architects who wanted to kind of come up with a quick, impactful way to present art projects. And the true pachachka actually is 20 seconds per slide. Ours is a slight modification of that. It's 24 seconds per slide. Each person has 5 slides and has 2 minutes to talk on one of the existing conditions report topics. And as Hillary mentioned, none of us are indeed experts on the topic that we're speaking about tonight. So I hope you'll take it as a quick overview and save your questions for the next item. And so with that, I will introduce our first presenter, Christy, and we'll get going. So the slides will advance automatically. So you may notice that, we may run over one or not quite hit the mark on one, but we're just gonna keep going. And the whole thing should take about 28 minutes. Thank you.
So good evening, Commissioners. My name is Christy Pham, one of the new planners from current planning department. My topic is aesthetic and visual resource. Does beauty hold in the eye of beholder? How do we define aesthetic for a place? There can be a systematic approach to answer this question. Aesthetic and visual resource are defined as elements from natural and built environment that contribute to the visual character of a place. So what is in a place? These are the typical elements from natural and built environment. In Palo Alto, there are 10 major field corridors, 11 primary gateways, 4,500 acres of open space, along with private tree, 36,000 city-owned urban trees, and 100 public art pieces. There are a lot of elements around us that contribute to the visual character of our city. The composition of these visual elements create unique aesthetic quality. It can be identified by the 35 residential neighborhoods, various scale of commercial centers and employment districts. A regulatory framework is established to preserve the aesthetic quality of each of these areas. Starting from the high-level comprehensive plan, particularly the land use and community design elements, coordinated area plans, zoning ordinance and architectural review process, as well as a mix of advisory design guidelines. Thank you.
And good evening. My name is Tim Wong. I'm the Interim Advanced Planning Manager, and my topic tonight is air quality. And air quality refers to the amount of pollutants in the air. And as we all know, pollutants are bad. They're known health hazards. Pollutants such as carbon monoxide, ozone or smog, particulate matter, generally from burning of combustible things. So yeah, other sources of pollution in Palo Alto, the main one, of course, is burning of fossil fuels, internal combustion engines, mainly from congestion. And so other sources of pollution in Palo Alto include dry cleaners, wood burning at times, also construction sites. So those are the main ones. And other factors affecting air quality include wind. Wind helps vent or cleanse the Bay Area of pollutants. Rain helps scrub or vent some of those pollutants, in addition to temperature. And temperature can cause inversions, which traps the pollutants in the Bay Area. But it is not all that bad. Actually, pollution has gone down, air quality has gone up. As you can see in the top right-hand chart, those are the number of days that air quality had exceeded federal standards, and it's constantly going down due to the good work of the Bay Area Quality Management District, who has Spare the Air days, and also the California Air Resources Board that has mandatory smog checks. So thank you very much.
Hello, Commissioners. My name is Rebecca Atkinson, and I'm a new current planner with the department. And this tree is one of my inspirational neighbors in Palo Alto. I'm so happy to live by it. My topic today focuses on existing biological resources in Palo Alto and touches in on the ongoing social discussion of how their presence can inform project design. Where are we? In dynamic California, we have mountains to the sea, and in Palo Alto, we have our hills to the bay through 3 watersheds. Palo Alto has great habitat diversity, and there's even a habitat conservation plan for Stanford University covering the California tiger salamander, California red-legged frog, San Francisco garter snake, steelhead, and western pond turtle. Our open space in the hills and at the bay, along with creek corridors, are incredibly important to protecting sensitive flora and fauna. And they are also important spaces for people to gather outside of the office. The fresh air and scenery facilitate the development of the next big idea. Palo Alto's award-winning urban forest functions as an extension of woodland plant communities and provides a bridge for wildlife between the hills and the bay. It provides cover, forage, and nesting habitat for wildlife. Palo Alto protects and maintains the urban forest through dedicated staff, and the Urban Forest Master Plan, Guidelines, and Chapter 810 of the Municipal Code. If our project is shaping the built environment, here are some of the minimal basics for how we can design our buildings and urban forms to be more sensitive to existing biological resources in Palo Alto. Here's an example of a home that was designed to protect the tree canopy above it, and here's an example of bird-friendly glass. So what's next? Palo Alto can play a leadership role in defining next-generation green building, implementing best practices for designing roadway corridors and complete streets, and addressing climate change. Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Matt Weintraub, or Matt if you prefer. I bring 15 years of experience in planning and historic preservation to the city of Palo Alto, and I'm here to talk to you about cultural resources. Fortunately, one does not have to be a treasure hunter like Indiana Jones to find cultural resources in Palo Alto. They're all around us, providing us with a sense of time and place. Architectural resources are the type of cultural resources that most people are familiar with on a day-to-day basis. An architectural resource is a significant example of its style, its building type, its period of development, or a representative work of a master designer. Here are a few examples of residential and cultural architectural resources in Palo Alto which enrich our built environment. Historical resources are another kind of cultural resource. Historical resources are physical properties that are directly associated with important historical events or patterns of events, or important historic persons or groups of people. Historical resources provide physical linkages to the significant entities and events that have shaped our history. Architecturally, some are very modest. For the next type of cultural resource, we actually will need Indiana Jones or someone with his professional training. Archaeological resources are the physical remnants of past civilizations, societies, and even prehistoric biological environments. Unlike architectural and historic resources, which are part of our everyday built environment, archaeological properties are concealed beneath the surface of the land. There exists a loosely coordinated framework of federal, state, and local programs that apply to cultural resources. Their common goal is to encourage owners to rehabilitate and adaptively reuse architectural and historic resources and to provide appropriate treatment for archaeological resources. In these ways, the tangible links to our past are preserved for present and future generations. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Diana Tamale. I'm one of the admin for the city. I've been here for 20 years. And my great partner here, Chitra Motra, is a planner for the advanced planning, and she's been here for 9 years. Between both of us, we've been here 30 years. So we're here today to talk to you about geology, soils, and seismicity. Disaster is not a monkey business. The beautiful Bay Area is sitting on a 3 active fault, and from the active fault, we would experience landsliding, liquidation, earthquakes, and other disasters related to nature.
Good evening. So we all know that the big one is coming. We have heard about it quite a bit. And living in the Bay Area, we have a more than 63% chance of facing the big one coming between now and 2036. We are sitting on several fault lines, of which 3 of them are pretty major. So what can we do about it? We can be worried sick about it. We can be oblivious about it. But the best thing is to be smart and get prepared for it. So there are state laws and regulations which help us to get better prepared for it. They prevent construction of buildings over active fault lines. Some agencies publishes maps and which denotes active fault lines passing through the city. And some agencies enforce international standards for safety and protection of life and real properties. So what does our own city do for us? We have our municipal code. Title 16 and Title 18 requires us to build with higher safety standards. Our code provides incentives also for retrofitting in the form of providing bonus FARs. We have our own Office of Emergency Services, and they help us and they provide us resources of all kinds during time of emergencies. The city of Palo Alto also has its own emergency operation plan that helps in mitigation, prevention, preparedness, response, and recovery during any disasters. If you still want more information, there are lots of online resources which are available where you can get a lot of extra information, and they provide ongoing public education and awareness. And some of these resources are University of California, Berkeley Seismological Lab's website, ABAG's website on earthquakes and hazard programs, State of California's Department of Conservation's website, and of course, FEMA and American Red Cross's website, which helps you to, plans you to prepare home earthquake plan kits. So lastly, but not the least, we all know act of nature cannot be predicted or prevented. So it's best to be informed, be cool, and make the right decisions. So please don't lose sleep over it. Thank you.
Hello, Amy French, Chief Planning Official. Since starting here in the last century, I've made 2 children and helped create our climate protection plan and launch the first green building ordinance and program. I take the train to work to decrease my fossil fuel use. This habit reduces CO2 that forms heat-trapping greenhouse gas emissions. These emissions create problems for our Earth, like sea level rise, frequent extreme weather events, and loss of biodiversity. Landfills pass gas too, CO2 and methane, and these are renewable energy alternatives to fossil fuels. Palo Alto is required by the state to divert landfill waste, and we do. Over 80% of our C&D debris and 100% of the asphalt and concrete materials. We use the online software Green Halo to ensure contractors comply with our C&D debris ordinance. Palo Alto's electric power comes mostly from renewable energy sources, and we are 100% carbon neutral. We offset our non-renewable utilities portfolio with renewable energy certificates. And the carbon intensity of our city's electricity is among the lowest in the state, due to Palo Alto's 2013 carbon neutral electric plan. Now, in 2007, Palo Alto was one of the first United States cities to develop a climate protection plan. Our plan aims to reduce the city's emissions to lower than 2005 levels. From 2005 levels, city operations are down by 53%, and overall emissions are down by 29%, which exceed the 2012 and 2020 goals. Our new focus is now zero net energy, so our 2050 emissions can be 80% of 1990 levels. The upcoming Climate Action Plan will have to address big challenges. These include resource flows, energy efficient structures, and behavior, including reducing fossil fuel use, using EVs, planning for smart transportation, land use development, providing education, and tree hugging. Next up is Claire Campbell.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Claire Campbell, and I'm a senior planner, and I've been with the City of Palo Alto for over 13 years. I work in the current planning section, and I currently review development project applications. Tonight, I'll give you a quick overview of hazards and hazardous materials within our city. Palo Alto has a variety of potential hazards, including airport hazards, wildfires, and hazards associated with the exposure to toxic materials. New development in the city must consider these conditions as they apply to individual sites. As shown on this slide, there are many regulatory agencies that review and watch what the cities do at a local, state, and federal level. Palo Alto has a range of hazardous material sites throughout the city, with the majority of sites located in the Cal Ave area and the adjacent Research Park properties. The city has 3 significant groundwater plumes located on Page Mill Road, California Avenue, and Miranda Avenue, all created by previous electronic developers. Another hazard for the city to consider is development in the Palo Alto Baylands due to the location of the airport. In 2010, a plane crashed into a PG&E transmission tower and fell into the East Palo Alto residential neighborhood. This is a recent and vivid example of what can go wrong and how important it is for planning in this area next to the airport. For those of us who spend most of our time down in the flatlands of Palo Alto, it's easy to forget that the city includes the foothills area, which has a real threat of fire. These properties are required to comply with specific site maintenance standards as well as development regulations in order to minimize the spread of fire. Thank you.
Good evening, Chair, members of the Planning Commission. My name is Consuelo Hernandez. I'm a senior planner in the Advanced Planning Division. I'm originally from Southern California, so go Dodgers. I relocated up here to work for the City of Palo Alto, and it's been a great time. I'm happy to be here tonight. This evening, I'm sorry, that's a picture of my family, my little Brady Bunch family up there. And then the next 2 minutes, I'll be summarizing the regulatory framework and the existing conditions related to land use. Land use generally defines the landscape of the built and unbuilt environment and the overall character of the city. Regulating land use allows local governments to create a blueprint for the future development of a community. Then policies and programs are designed and developed to ensure that land use within the city is planned in a way that maintains and enhances the identity of a community, and most importantly, providing the public health and safety. So how exactly do we achieve this? Cue the regulations. There are several regulations related to land use in Palo Alto. This includes state regulations like the California General Plan Law, the Mills Act, and SB 375, to name a few. We also have regional regulations from various agencies. I think we've all heard of ABAG, MTC, LAFCO, and CMP. And of course, let's not forget about the Palo Alto process with our municipal code zoning ordinance, SOFA 1, 2, and the downtown cap. A common source of confusion is the distinction between the existing land uses, the land use designation in the comp plan, and the zoning designations. They're all different but related, and every property in Palo Alto has all three. The existing land uses refers to the current use in place regardless of the present zoning or general plan designation. The comp plan land use designation refers to the broad categories, and the zoning designation implies or enforces the designations in the land use. Several factors have contributed to produce the land pattern that exists in Palo Alto today, beginning in 1894, when the city was founded to serve the needs of Stanford University. The 1950s, when El Camino Real was two-lane state highway connecting the towns along the peninsula. Sorry.
Good evening. My name is Jody Gerhardt, Senior Planner for the city. As you can see in the photo, I have two little boys, which all by itself means I know a little bit about noise. But actually, my first house gave me a good experience because it was surrounded by trains, cars, and planes overhead. But it was within walking distance to work, and so it was affordable. To better understand Palo Alto's existing noise conditions, we need to know that sound is measured in decibels on a logarithmic scale. Most people can hear above 15 decibels, and at about 85 decibels is when we start having hearing damage. You see some typical noise levels here, but we need to make sure that understand that sound reduces over distance. One of the other things here is that in urban areas like Palo Alto, it's dominated by transportation-related noise, such as cars and trains that you'll hear here. So construction and air traffic, it also is a modest contribution. And then with stationary and noise, we have mechanical equipment that is adding to that environment. This makes sense now that you see the contours on the map that Highway 101 would have the largest contour at 70 decibels. Our rail lines and our major roadways are also 70 decibels, but their contours taper off much more quickly as you move away from the street. We also have the airport that contributes to the noise, but it's much more removed from our urban development. To regulate noise, the city has developed acceptable noise limits. When reviewing planning projects, we take into account uses that are sensitive to noise, such as residential, schools, hospitals, and parks, where 60 to 65 decibels is considered the maximum acceptable level. And above that, we would be adding mitigation measures to the project. Thank you.
Good evening, commissioners. You know me as the city's parking manager, Jessica Sullivan, but tonight I'm going to talk about population, housing, and employment. So I'm here with the cast of characters from the hit HBO TV show Silicon Valley. As you know, these guys had to use their office as their house, and their house as their office, and there's lots of reasons for that. So in the state of California, housing is regulated by several agencies, but probably the most notable of those agencies is ABAG, or the Association of Bay Area Governments, which basically generates a regional housing needs allocation for each city, and then each city ultimately in turn comes up with their own housing element. We just passed our housing element, which is fantastic, and several goals of our housing element include preserving neighborhood quality and creating housing near services. We have a lot of aging housing stock in Palo Alto. Much of it was constructed before 1960 and is being upgraded with federal grant money. And single family houses are extremely difficult for the average person in Santa Clara County to afford. In fact, a low income family in Santa Clara County would have to make 5 times as much money to be able to afford the average house in Palo Alto. Palo Alto has a very population which is aging. And right now is about 60% Caucasian, although this is actually less Caucasian percentage than we've seen in the last 10 years or so. We have an increase of Asians and Hispanics, which is also consistent with the rest of Santa Clara County. And the poverty level is about half of Santa Clara County as well. As far as jobs go, we in Silicon Valley are very lucky to see great job opportunities for many folks. But as many of you know, the jobs to housing ratio is very high in Palo Alto, and so for that reason, we experience a lot of the traffic problems that I'm working very hard in my other job to try to solve. So thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Robin Elner, and I've been with the city for 14 years. I am the Secretary to the Commission and also handle the Planning Department's contracts. Tonight I'm going to touch on public services. Public services are the general services provided by the City of Palo Alto and are broken down into 4 categories: schools, police, fire, and recreation. In addition to the public schools in Palo Alto, there are also private and charter schools, which offer programs that the Palo Alto Union School District does not cover or provide. There are also school impact fees, which are charged for both residential and commercial construction. For fire, the Palo Alto Fire Department service area covers the Palo Alto jurisdiction boundaries and parts of Stanford. The fire department has entered into mutual aid and automatic aid with surrounding jurisdictions. They provide emergency medical services, as well as the staff are both paramedics and firefighters. The police department provides a multitude of services, which include animal services, which has a spay and neuter clinic, and animal adoption services, traffic safety, as well as criminal investigations. The police department is comprised of both sworn officers and non-sworn personnel. Recreation. The City of Palo Alto operates 34 parks and preserves. There we go. The Recreation Service Division also offers a wide range of programs for youth, adults, and seniors. They host a variety of events, including, but not limited to, the annual Chili Cook-Off. Some of the city's recreation facilities include the Junior Museum and Zoo, the Municipal Golf Course and Recanata Pool, just to name a few. There are also privately owned facilities and land managed by conservative groups. Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Rafael Reyes. I'm a transportation project engineer. I've been with the city for about 6 years, and I've been studying traffic for about 16 years. Tonight, I'm going to talk briefly about traffic and parking and how we analyze the various projects in the city. For over 20 years, Palo Alto, like most cities in California, has been using level of service and delay for analyzing projects and to determine whether a project would trigger a significant environmental impact. If a significant impact was triggered by a proposed project, then usually the project would be required to mitigate it. What we noticed are a lot of these mitigations involved widening roadways or intersections and often cut into bicycle facilities or sidewalks. So about 2008, our policies started to change, and we started to look at more of a complete streets approach, where we also analyzed bicycles, pedestrians, access to transit, and of course, automobile LOS. I'd say late last year, things got a lot more complicated when the state of California passed a new law, SB 743, which basically said automobile LOS is no longer an appropriate metric for determining significant environmental impacts. Instead, we're directed to use vehicle miles traveled, or VMT. I think VMT is probably relatively new to myself and you guys, so we'll be talking about it a lot in the near future. Parking. Parking's another big issue. We're going to take a lot of these to you this year, including a residential permit parking program, potentially a new downtown garage, and TDM measures to hopefully reduce parking demand. I wish we could solve all these problems in 24 seconds, but we can't, so I'll have to come back another night. Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. This is Ruchika Agarwal. She's been with the city for 14 years, and I'm Zaria Betton, and I've been with the city 21 years and counting. We're here to present to you the transit and bicycle section of the existing conditions. But to begin, we have a short but fun video clip summarizing some of the modes of transportation. Yeah.
If you wanna take your bicycle, but not all the way. If you'd rather do the first 5 miles and take it easy. If you're on your bicycle and it starts to range. Put your back on the bus, put your back on the train. There's a special place for you back when you ride with us. It's on the middle of the light rail or the front of the bus. Just throw your bike in the rack and pour the clamp on the top. Take your fare, take a seat anywhere you desire. And remember when you're leaving just to try to be seen. Did I tell you the best part is that your bike rides for free? Take your bike for a ride.
Talking of transit, it is important to note that Caltrain plays a very important role in this area. As you can see, there has been a dramatic increase in ridership over the last 10 years. And Palo Alto is number 2 amongst bike usage and ridership amongst all the stations. Although existing conditions are not static and staff is always seeking additional data to understand the region and the issues that we face. The Palo Alto shuttle program has been in existence since 1999. The crosstown route is 100% funded by the city and managed by the city. The Embarcadero route is a part of the Caltrain commuter shuttle program and is subsidized by Caltrain up to 75%. The newest route is the East Palo Alto route. The Palo Alto Bicycle and Transportation Plan was adopted by Council in 2012, and they prioritize implementation of the plan through an infusion of funding in the Capital Improvement Program in the amount of $1.2 million each year for the next 5 years. Currently, there are 25 active projects in the Bicycle Boulevard program for the city. Thank you.
My name is Victoria Hernandez. I'm a planning technician. I've been with the city since March 2014. Today I'll be talking about some of the utilities and service systems the city has to offer. The city of Palo Alto is the only municipality in California that operates such a wide variety of city-owned utility services. One of the very important resources we have is our water supply. The city's water supply is provided primarily by water surface supplies purchased from the San Francisco Public Utilities Commission. Our water supply is predominantly from the Sierra Nevada, delivered through the Hetch Hetchy aqueducts. Under regular conditions, about 17 million gallons per day are allocated to Palo Alto. However, due to the current severe drought conditions, about 14.7 million gallons per day have been allocated for Palo Alto. The city does not anticipate exceeding this limit. The city has also increased its water conservation program efforts and has doubled the rebate for removal of lawns and replacement with drought-tolerant landscaping. One of the unique services Palo Alto has to offer is its own fiber optic utility. Our dark fiber optic service provides customers with high-capacity bandwidth to transport large quantities of data. We have a 41-mile fiber system that provides services to city facilities, commercial properties, and the Stanford Research Park. The city also offers waste collection, disposal, and recycling. In an effort to reduce waste, the city has adopted a zero waste plan to virtually eliminate waste being burned or buried by 2021. In 2012, the city had a diversion rate of 77%, confirming that Palo Alto is on its way to accomplishing its goal of having zero waste. Thank you.
Good evening, Planning Commissioners. Jason Nortz. I'm Planning Manager for Development Services. I've been with the city for 10 years. Unfortunately, this will be my last Planning Commission meeting tonight as I've taken on a new job and will be moving to the city of Asheville. So tonight I will be talking to you about hydrology and water quality. It's a very important topic, obviously, because of the recent drought that California has been experiencing over the past few years. So, where does Palo Alto's water come from? As Victoria previously mentioned, our water comes from snowpack from the Sierra Nevada, not the brewery, but the mountains. Our water is provided to us by the San Francisco Public Utilities Commission. Palo Alto's local water resources include groundwater, surface water, recycled wastewater, and stormwater runoff. And Palo Alto sees an average annual rainfall of 15.21 inches. Palo Alto is situated in the Santa Clara Basin watershed. There are 3 smaller watersheds within the city, specifically the San Francisco watershed, the Matadero Creek watershed, and the Adobe Creek watershed. The San Francisco watershed is our largest watershed. It drains into an area of about 42 square miles from Skyline Boulevard and Santa Cruz Mountains east to the San Francisco Bay. I would be remiss if I were talking about water without mentioning flooding. So almost all of Palo Alto lies within the 100 and 500-year floodplain. The San Francisco Creek has been subject to recent floods, as we all know, and as such, planning for floods is an integral part of community planning. The San Francisco JPA was formed to address the recent flooding concerns. Also, the JPA is in process of obtaining permits for flood control projects for the creek. Last but not least is water quality. So not only does water quality have a direct impact on us, it also has a direct impact on man's best friend, as you can see by the picture. We're taking great measures to maintain high quality of water in Palo Alto. Some of these measures include our regulatory framework, which includes but is not limited to FEMA, the Clean Water Act, the California Coastal Act, and numerous city comprehensive plans and policies. So that concludes our presentation tonight. I just wanted to thank the Planning Commission for allowing us to do this, and we look forward to working with you in the next year. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Have a beer for us.
Okay, so that's item 1. We're going to go to the study session, item 2. And if there's anyone in the public that would like to comment on these items, submit a speaker card, and we will call you. We have no cards, I assume? No cards. Okay, so we're going to close the oral communications on that and move to the study session. So for this study session, so we all got a quick primer on this big thick book here, and just to kind of frame this discussion, I think this is an opportunity for I think if you think about what is the currency for the commission, one of the currencies for the commission is to actually have good data, right? Good data to make decisions, and this is certainly a pretty big data source, but I think maybe we could use that as a frame to figure out what other kinds of data sources would be helpful for the commission as we go forward. So that's one kind of thread of thought. The other thread of thought is if there's any other comments or questions or discussion you want to have about the draft existing conditions report, this is also a good time to do it. Unlike previous commission meetings for the past year or so, we're going to do this a little bit differently in that rather than just going up and down the line, we're actually going to use our lights. So I have everyone's name here upside down, so if I mess it up, just let me know. So if you have something to say, pull a light, and I'll call on you, but don't feel compelled unless you actually have something to say. So hopefully everyone can figure out the little lever next to them. It's the little silver lever on the bottom. And so there's not going to be there will be like a time limit, so no one will filibuster. But but not to be limited in terms of there's only 2 shots at it, and that's it. It's going to be basically when you have something to say about that current thread that we're talking about, just pull a lever and I'll call you. So what I hope to do by doing this is have a more fluid discussion, more of a discussion versus a series of monologues. So that's the intent here. So you guys can pull your levers, unless, Director, you have something to say?
Well, maybe I can just let you know what you have in front of you from us. The existing conditions report was published at the end of, or it was in August of last year. And this is essentially what you would find in the settings section of an EIR. You know, if you're on the comp plan, we were thinking we're going to have to do this work anyway. Let's push it out as a draft, start to get comment, and start to build on this as a data set. So it was our first pass. We have gotten some comments from the public, but it's not an entertaining read. So more often than not, what we're getting is people submitting to us their ideas of additional data sets that we should add to our library. And so we have provided you with some of that. I think you got a copy of a PowerPoint that Stephen Levy prepared regarding anticipated demographic changes in the region. This, again, is not so much about existing conditions as a look forward, but it does have some existing conditions data and some recent trend data. We've also given you a copy of a memo that the city received.
Actually, one second. I don't think we actually got that presentation.
Oh, I'm sorry. I know it's in the back of the room, so
Okay.
After my introduction, I'll get copies and give it to you. There's another document that the city received on the 20th. It's a memo from John Redgrave containing a survey that was done, and I think Commissioner Rosenblum could probably explain the genesis of this idea, but it was a survey done by 3 technology companies located here in Palo Alto, a survey of their workforce about their employment density and mode share and travel to work patterns associated with employment in Palo Alto. So that's a supplemental data set that I think is worth note. And then finally today, I prepared just a half-page memo for you that contains basically a updated version of one of the tables from the existing conditions report. Subsequent to preparation of the report, our traffic consultants used an updated and much better methodology to calculate the origins and destinations of the vehicle trips in and out and within Palo Alto. And the resulting data is quite different than what was presented in the report. And I think a very good and important piece of information for us going forward, because it does show that about 61% of the vehicle trips that happen in Palo Alto are internal trips. So they're people that either live and work here or who are just taking trips within the boundaries of the city. And that commuters, and we think of those as mostly the external to internal trips, are really just over a third of the vehicle miles traveled. A lot of those may be long trips, but the total of the vehicle miles traveled only constitutes about a third of the total. So that's a supplemental data set for you there. So we'd really love your questions on any of these materials and your discussion about additional data that we may be able to bring to bear as we move forward in this next year to confront some of the challenges and issues that are on our plate. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. So we're going to start off with Commissioner Rosenblum.
Thanks. I wasn't sure if I knew how to operate the lever properly, so good, it confirms. First, thanks for this. This is awesome. This is great to have a Bible and a source to go to. I have a bunch of things to start out with, but the overall thing is I would guess that the Planning Commission will be one of the main consumers of this kind of data. And so as such, I think it's useful to look at a lot of the major decisions that we have to make and then compare the usefulness of the data here and then see what the gaps are. And the ones that I could identify, in terms of will this project significantly add to traffic and parking problems, I think there's some gaps. And will this project have an impact on things like overcrowding of schools? There's a gap. And so let me be more specific. I think that there should be some basic data on number of employees by employment district, square foot of office space, employees per square foot, mode share of employees. And that helps us when there's a project being proposed to understand how many employees will likely be there, how many cars will be added, how much parking would be required, et cetera. I think that's kind of a basic thing that doesn't exist right now in the report. There should be some basic data, I think, and I don't know if this is outside scope, but there's a section called schools on the composition of the school population. And so again, relative to our work, which is approving projects, so by projects of different sizes, how many people would be expected to be added to the school? And that I think you'd have to get in conjunction with the school demographer. But I think that is, from a PTC standpoint, the school section is most relevant, or it comes up in our discussions relative to what burden would be put on the schools. And then finally, or two other data sets. One that is missing, and I'm not sure if this was intentional, but a retail survey. It comes up a lot in our meetings, and it comes up a lot at council, this retail health survey. And that would probably, the basic data is total square foot of retail by business area, receipts per square foot, and rental rates per square foot as an indicator of health of retail. And then finally, some basic data on traffic. So you have level of service, and then this addition on VMT is really useful. A time series would be amazing. And it seemed to have a couple of points in time in the report. I'm not sure if there's any more data available to the city, but a time series of LOS at key intersections. And if there's any way to get a time series on VMT, that would also be useful, but I suspect that's a fairly new measure. And that's it for me. I thought the report was great.
Thank you. Thank you. Would you like us to respond to any of the? Okay.
So I guess in the past, because we used to have the format of where we go up and down the line and everyone has to kind of like give all their comments in one shot, right, or a couple shots. I think to keep it more interactive, I think we could probably, maybe talk about an issue, and I think it would be good for staff to respond. I also think it would be good for fellow commissioners to respond on that same thread, so we could have a more complete discussion about each issue.
Okay, I'll be really brief, but I thank you for the suggestion about additional data on employees and employment per square foot and mode share by district. I think that would be fascinating. We've had trouble finding a source for that data. And I think the business registry is the council's current strategy to get more information on that. In terms of schools, we can certainly look for a data set. I'm sure there's one available about the composition of the school population. When it comes to assessing impacts of projects on schools, there are some limitations in state law. So we'll have to discuss that in a later session with the city attorney. In terms of retail, it is on our plate to look at retail issues this year, and we're contracting with the downtown CAP consultant to do some of that work. So we should have more information on that as the year goes on. And then traffic, we were quite restrained in this existing conditions report, and there were really only a couple points in time represented, but we do have some historical data, and some of it's counterintuitive because traffic really fluctuates with the economic cycle, and we can dig some of that up and share it with the commission in the future.
Okay, great. Are there any other commissioners that have comments or questions? Okay, well, actually, I have a question. So can staff talk about what kind of budget is there for acquiring this kind of data, budget both in terms of dollars and staff time? What are some of the limitations that staff has around these items?
Thank you, Chair Tanaka. I'm not going to be able to answer with any specificity, but in general, most of the work that we're doing in terms of data collection is project specific. So it's budgeted as part of a specific project like the comprehensive plan in this case. We do have staff resources that are devoted to data and analysis, and we can accommodate some minimal level of data collection just out of our regular operating budget, but generally it happens in the course of a specific project. I should mention that we do have policy in the comprehensive plan about monitoring downtown and citywide land use changes, and that data set is the subject of a lot of discussion right now because the City Council is considering this idea of metering the pace of growth. In that same set of policies in the comprehensive plan, there's something about monitoring the traffic at given locations on an annual basis. And we have not done it on an annual basis. We've tended to do it on a biannual basis. So we collected data on 51 intersections for this report. This past year, or actually it was prior to this report. In this report, we presented data on, I think, 13 intersections, and this coming year, we'll be looking at the 51 intersections again. So it's a biannual process, and we have in that cycle, we generate or collect a lot of different data on transportation conditions. So I hope that responds to your question.
It does, thank you. Okay, so so just use your lights, and I'll call on you. Okay, so Commissioner Gardias is first.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So there is one thing that I would be looking for in this report, which is great, by the way, so thank you very much for all the hard work. I tried to look up some other existing condition reports from other municipalities across California, and I noticed that within land use, zoning analysis was more beefed up than we have. In some instances, I noticed there was a separate chapter, but it doesn't matter, it's just a technicality. But what I would be interested in is the zoning impact per zone, how much growth was for per different elements of the population added, of the parking added, of the square footage or the cubic feet, whatever elements we can decompose each zone on, and then just allow us to see where there is where there is an impact from the growth perspective. This way we can see which areas, although maybe we know them by heart, but we may see which areas have natural impact of growth and they are growing more rapidly than the others, and which elements of those zones are creating constraint.
Thank you, Commissioner. That's an excellent suggestion. As you know, this report was really a snapshot in time, so it didn't do the kind of time series that both you and Commissioner Rosenblum have talked about, but I think that would be an engaging exercise. And again, I think we'd learned some things that were maybe a little counterintuitive. We have the impression that we've grown so fast in the last few years, and in actuality, a lot of the traffic and the increased activity we're experiencing has to do with the use of existing building stock. A lot of the buildings that have been actually approved in the last few years haven't even come online yet. So it would be a really useful exercise, I think, to compare change in square footage over time with the change in total jobs over time, change in population and traffic volumes over time, and perhaps that's something that we can prioritize and get to in the course of the year. Staff.
Right. I mean, it's pretty much, if I can just say it from the different perspective, you got it right. But I'm looking for something like a heat map, just to see where naturally we are growing, despite of all the restrictions and regulations and zoning that we have, and then comparing this against each zone and see which zones are impacted more heavily, which are impacted from the lesser perspective.
I understand. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Vice Chair Fine.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you all for that great presentation and this report. I think Commissioner Gardias has an excellent point about the zoning analysis and the impacts there. It reminds me of some of the commercial potential studies we saw in the downtown CAP, and that would be really interesting to see across the city, but not just on the commercial level, maybe if it's possible, even residential levels, where people can build, where they are building, what percentage of their FAR they've filled up. To that end, I also think it links up with Commissioner Rosenblum's point about some of the impacts on schools and development as well. It was interesting to see some of the numbers about the development impact fees and the school fees there. I was wondering if there's a schedule of those by year. I know it's linked to building, but over time that'd be helpful. And then also an exploration of maybe what other cities are using development impact fees. If it's not just for affordable, what else can it go to, whether it's public services, transportation, parking, what other tools we have in hand that might be useful there.
Okay. Commissioner Dowling, please.
So I don't know if this comment is necessarily appropriate for the draft existing conditions report, but I guess it does go to the idea of what kind of data that we need. And you know, the one thing that I find very striking here is that none of this talks about what our residents want. There's really no information here, for example, about, you know, do people want more parks? Do they want more music venues? Do we not have enough childcare? Do we not have enough community rooms? There's kind of no information about what people view as missing from their neighborhoods, you know, what they'd like to see more of. I think that if we asked, we'd get probably pretty surprising answers to some of those things, and it's a little bit better to do planning based on what your community actually says they want, rather than just what, you know, us, the Planning Commission, thinks they want, right? We're just a couple of people, we're not the whole city. So it'd be nice to have that kind of information. And I would go further, right? I mean, for instance, one of our policy goals is, you know, we want to increase the number of people biking, or we want to increase the number of people walking. We have no data on what's stopping people from doing that. And I feel like those answers might also be very interesting, right? Maybe it's a particular intersection that's bothering them. Maybe it's a particular use near them that is preventing them from doing that. But in general, if we had that kind of information, we could target specific programs at, you know, those groups of people. And furthermore, you know, when we talk about transportation needs, especially when we talk about enhancing VTA service within Palo Alto, or we're talking about our shuttle service, again, we're not really going to the people and asking them, what do you need? What do you wish we had? We're kind of guessing what we think are the best our best estimate of what's necessary, but it's not really coming from the community. And I think by asking, that's one way of getting people to engage with us that we're not necessarily doing today. And I know that we do that kind of as a, we do one-off surveys with particular projects. I've seen that, for example, with the Parks Department. They'll ask, they'll do surveys where they'll say, which parks need improvements, what kind of amenities do you want to see? I think that's great. I guess I would like to see that more as a concerted effort. Like, this is something that we try to do for as many things in which it makes sense to do. And it'd be nice if in the end we had a compilation of that as well as a compilation of all of this. So that's my comment. Thank you.
Chair Tanaka, if I can just jump in and say a couple things. First, I want to acknowledge the idea of asking questions, and I should have mentioned this in my introduction today. It just happens that this week, the citizens survey that is done every year about Palo Alto and what the residents of Palo Alto think about the city and its services and how we compare to benchmark cities, that was released this week. So it's available on our website, and it provides, I think, some of the insights that you're talking about. Also, there's an opportunity each year to add specific questions that are asked in the course of the survey. This year there was one particularly added about the location of housing. But there might be an opportunity in future years to add something about, I like the idea of, like, what's keeping you from riding your bicycle downtown or the like. It's a great way to phrase that question, and we might get some valuable answers if we do that in subsequent years. There was one other thought. The idea of impact fees, looking at our impact fees. We do have a number of impact fees that are not just related to below market rate housing and school fees. And we review those periodically with the City Council during the budget process. And I'm expecting that will happen again this year. They're actually in the process of adding 2 impact fees, one related to public safety facility and one related to public facilities, I think. I haven't been participating, but that's a conversation I'd be happy to have with the commission at some time, just to let you know what other communities do and where we fall. Our fees are pretty high when you compare them to other jurisdictions, and we also have a lot more of them than many jurisdictions do. Thank you.
Okay, so any other comments, questions? Okay, so
is the process that we just keep going?
oh yeah, so basically, yeah, so there's no rounds per se. You have a limited number of rounds. I think the idea is if you have something to say, just pull a lever and you'll be called on. Okay. Commissioner Rosenblum.
Yeah, thanks. So I just want to go one layer a little bit deeper. And it goes to the comment of linking this report to decisions that we often have to make. And so the proportions of the report were quite different. So there's 40 pages on noise, including the main section and noise-related appendix, and 25 pages on land use. And so in terms of like us as a consumer, I recognize many departments will be consumers of this, but as kind of key consumers of this, on the land use and building type section, as detailed as we can get. So for example, we have breakdown of residential properties, renters versus owners, single family detached versus multifamily, but down to the composition by number of bedrooms, so studios versus 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, et cetera. The growth in those various proportions, that in context against the rest of the region. Really helps when we're thinking about individual projects, what it does to the existing stock of various types of buildings. The second piece that I found missing, as I mentioned, retail was missing altogether. This relates to what Commissioner Downing had brought up. I think there are a lot of budgetary numbers that are useful for planning purposes. And off the top of my head, parking assessment dollars, impact fees, also, what was the others? Also, fees that we pay for various transit programs like shuttles, and again, if possible, a time series. And the relevant ratios are the things that are really useful. So for example, in our discussion of shuttles, the dollars per boarding. So how much are we paying per person per trip, and how does that vary over time? And so again, as we get into our major issues, that is useful, for example, in examining shuttles versus using a car service. When we look at each residential development, it's useful to put that in context of other formats of residential development. So again, those sections, as detailed as we can get, but specifically if you line it up against the major decisions we've made over the last years, that would be a good guide to the sections to blow out.
Thank you once again, very insightful comments. I think we can probably find some of the additional detail on unit sizes in the housing element that was just certified, so we have another data source on that. In terms of the fiscal stuff, you know, the fees and the cost per trip, we also have some of that information. It didn't make it into this report because, again, this was prepared in the context of the CEQA review, and the California Environmental Quality Act doesn't require a financial or fiscal analysis. So we would do that separately, but I take your point. I mean, it's important input to commission and council decisions and where it's relevant. For example, with the shuttle system, the council has specifically asked for a metric about the cost per, I forget if it's rider or boarding or whatever it is, but we are working on that metric and are on task to report back to the city council on that.
Okay, so I have a few other comments. So one thing is, I think the commission is making a lot of requests from the city of staff, and what would be actually good is if, as a kind of output of this meeting, if we could have if you guys could compile a list, and not that we'll necessarily get all of them, but it would be nice to have a list of data that we've requested, and that way, you know, as we did in the course of our business, we can actually kind of prioritize what's really needed and what's not. And so that's one request I have of staff, if you could do that as an output of this meeting. I think the other thing is, I think there's been a lot of requests for data and time series, and I think what would be really useful is to actually have it in electronic form, like some sort of CSV file or whatever, not just PDF, but a format that if you wanted to graph it on a spreadsheet or in Tableau or whatever tool you happen to use, I think that would also be good. And I realize it's too late to add any questions to the current survey, which I'm actually really pleased to hear the city doing every year. But you know, I think, as Commissioner Downing said, I think you know, I think one important input is community input, and so I think you know, I would encourage our fellow commissioners, if they have questions that we think might be relevant to have on future surveys, maybe it's good to send them in to staff. Any other questions, comments from my fellow commissioners? Okay.
Just one last thing for me, I think. Obviously, I love this topic. I think this is going to be a bear to maintain and put in a really useful format. And obviously you have an online version, but it's in this kind of pretty PDF format. I would love if the city's tech people looked at the possibility of putting this in some sort of wiki form, with staff maybe being the super editors, approving things that go on or off. So make it easier to edit, but also as potential in the future. There are a lot of planning hobbyists around Palo Alto, so people that are going around doing surveys.
I hadn't noticed that.
and you know, get very detailed about, you know, bird safe glass or parking numbers in their neighborhoods or what have you, and to give people a place where they can start storing this information and commenting on it in a way that keeps it up to date, but staff have the ability to approve submissions, et cetera, I think would be really useful, make it easier for you, and also give an outlet for people that are enthusiasts of you know, crowdsourcing planning data to start loading it. But at any rate, it's something I think worth considering, because I think it'll be hard to maintain this database.
I love the idea. I think I'll have to add a position to my budget request to do that, but I love it.
Okay, Commissioner Garias. You did?
No, I have a question. It's not a comment, it's a related question. Sure. May I ask this question? It just relates to the timeline of the comprehensive plan. Since we have this agenda listing through the end of April, I noticed there is nothing about the comprehensive plan on the agenda. Could you comment, please, are there any other items besides this that we will be looking into within the next couple of months?
Thank you, Commissioner Gardias. That's an excellent question. We are planning for a community-wide summit related to the comprehensive plan on May 30th, and we'd like the Commission to participate in that, and we'll be coming to you, I hope sometime soon. We haven't actually given a time frame to it to talk about what the Commission's role could be at that summit. But we're going to invite the City Council, the Planning Commission, and really all the boards and commissions and members of the community who are interested in getting their fingerprints on the comprehensive plan and helping us drive it towards a conclusion. And the idea is to come together at that day-long summit. May 30th is a Saturday. Get as many people in a room as we can and talk about what the issues we are facing and some of the choices we're going to have to make in the course of the comprehensive plan update, but then also recruit people to help us drive this to the end point and basically help us do the last work of editing and drafting and consolidating the information and incorporating the input and getting this to a point where we can bring it back to the Commission for your review and recommendation to the City Council. So all of that is, I know I'm sort of teasing you with very little information here, but all of this is very much in the formation stages with our leadership group of residents that are helping to plan the summit. And we should have more information to provide to the Commission, I hope within the next month and a half or so.
Thank you for the update. I was asking this question specifically from the perspective with the objective on mind that this Commission should have multiple iterations of looking into the stages of the comprehensive plan, because I'm sure that there will be a number of the ideas from this Commission and probably learning curve as well. So we would need to have multiple meetings about comprehensive plan within this year, I'm sure of it. Thank you.
Okay, so I think we've had a good discussion. I think, as we started the meeting, I think having good data is kind of currency of this Commission. So I think it's important to have that. I think we made a ton of suggestions to staff. So I think we're done on this topic unless staff has anything to add. Okay, so we'd like to close this item and move on to approval of minutes. We got the December 3rd and December 10th minutes. Do we have anyone who wants to make a motion on this to approve? Okay, so approval for both December 3rd and December 10th by Vice Chair Fine, and second by Commissioner Rosenblum. All in favor? Okay, we're done. Okay, we're done with the minutes. And then does staff have any other announcements? Okay, so I have just a few quick comments before we adjourn. So maybe not this next meeting, but later in February, we're going to have a report by staff on some of the council priorities and I guess some of the output from our Palo Alto. Is that correct? And what we want to start doing is keeping an inventory of all the topics that the Commission feels is important. It's actually a Google spreadsheet doc that Vice Chair Fine has created, which I hope all of you guys have gotten. No? Okay, you got it? Okay. Well, if not, maybe we could follow up and find out what happened. But the idea is we want to have kind of like I'm not sure if any of you guys are familiar with that concept of a scrum, like a backlog. They basically want to keep a backlog of topics that are important to the Commission. And so as you have ideas, add them to this backlog. And what we're going to do, starting after that not the next meeting, but the meeting later in February, is spend about 5 to 10 minutes kind of curating this and trying to prioritize. And so right now you see our agenda topics. The next one is going to be Los Troncos and PC reform, which are going to be pretty meaty topics. But we want to be able to use this to help prioritize the commission's priorities. There's some reactive stuff like, reviewing projects, but we also want to be proactive in terms of, well, are there certain subcommittees we need? Are there certain agenda topics we want to have? So this is kind of a way to kind of keep a living document of what's important to talk about. I don't know if staff has anything to add. We talked a little bit about it at the pre-commission meeting.
Yes, Cara Silver, Senior Assistant City Attorney. I just wanted to emphasize that in terms of keeping the Google Docs spreadsheet that you were talking about, in order to avoid a Brown Act problem, what we would ask is that you edit that during a public meeting and not edit it, offline. It needs to be done in public. Okay. Thank you.
Virtually cannot be edited offline.
I have a quick question on that. What if it were just an open doc to the public? Like anyone, it's with no restrictions. Anyone can see it at any time.
Then it needs to be noticed as a public meeting, and you have to give the public an opportunity to discuss the topic at a public forum. So we have had discussions about this in the past. Unfortunately, the Brown Act just has not kept up with modern technology.
What's to stop us from noticing the document in one of these regular agenda pieces? We can just include the link in every single one, and then during open comment, people can comment on it as it grows. Can we do that?
Yeah, that's fine. And I'm just saying that the commission, you can't hold a 24-hour meeting where you're virtually editing the document, but you can have an edit capability at the meeting, and the public can comment on it, and you can have a discussion about those topics at the meeting.
Is there a way we could facilitate changes to the document, like through Robin, maybe once a week? Like, could a commissioner, for example, email Robin and say, I'd like to add the following items, 1, 2, 3. She could copy paste them, if you will, and maybe she does it in such a, like maybe she does it at the meeting or something, so that it's not like a round table and it takes too much time at the meeting. I don't know.
Yes, absolutely. Of course, that's a staff resource issue, but yes, you can do that legally.
And then as far as I think part of the conversation that we had in our pre-commission meeting was this understanding that there's a number of projects that the department is going to be working on that come from the City Council in the form of its priority list, our own work program, which we'll be presenting to the commission in February. And there was an interest in identifying a handful of other discussion topics that the commission would be interested in having when the agenda is permitted and staff resources allowed for any kind of additional data collection or staff report preparation. So, and as we talk about a list being editable by the public, either in this forum or some other form that would be permissible, I just want to be cautious that we're not raising the expectation, not only of the commission, but the public, of our ability to have in-depth discussions about all these different topics, because our resources would not permit so. And so I think in our pre-commission meetings, we've talked about having a list be of 3, 4, 5 items, and continuing to maintain that, and then possibly another list, perhaps that's not included on the agenda, of things that didn't quite make it to the A list. But I'm happy to continue the conversation and dialogue about that, but I think we need to be cautious about what we're communicating and what expectations we're setting.
Okay. So, yeah, I think the point of this is really to help us prioritize, because I think there's limited staff time, there's also limited commission time. We want to use our resources wisely. So that's kind of the main point. The second thing is, although there's not anything to vote on at this meeting, for future meetings and where there are something to vote on, what we're going to be doing is Robin's going to set up a Google Doc that'll be up on the screen with the motion. And so that as people make motions, as we edit motions, we can actually all see it. So if you don't already, maybe it's worth it to bring some sort of tablet or computer to the meeting so that we can all see it ourselves. I think most of us do, but so that's something something to think about. And yeah, so and there's a couple other things that we're trying. I think a notice went on Nextdoor, trying to increase the publicity for these meetings. And there's also, we're also looking at things like Nextdoor, or not Nextdoor, Moderator, and what was the other thing called?
Open City Hall.
Open City Hall. So those are things that are a little bit more in the future. Okay, I think. Go ahead.
Just one last comment. I'd also ask all of my fellow commissioners to please check out the other list we sent around about the PTC representative to City Council. So a few of us have done it. It'd be great if everybody could kind of indicate which months they might be a primary or a secondary backup to City Council. We're trying to get in front of them a little bit more and give some ideas about why we made a decision or what we discussed, or answer any of their questions. The primary and secondary are particularly pressing for February.
And if you can send those, if you can extend those responses to Robin and not to each other. Thank you.
Should we not use the doc then? Okay, so I guess we have a couple of us signed up. We'll send it to Robin, and everyone else indicates your availability to Robin.
Yeah, I guess the important thing that Cara was talking about is any kind of collaboration that the commission has, whether it be a quorum of you participating in that, presents real problems when it comes to the Brown Act. So that kind of dialogue cannot happen outside of an agendized meeting.
Okay, before I close the meeting, any other quick comments, questions? Otherwise, we're done. Okay, we're adjourned at 7:21 p.m.